Some of Yeshua's teachings could be considered very cruel if you really practice them. When he said, "Suffer it be so, and you let the dead bury your dead, bury their dead." Do you know what that man is telling you? Leave your family be. Detach yourself psychologically and emotionally. Detach yourself and move on. Now, most people may say that's cruel. No, it's not, because I get what he's talking about. When he came back after 18 years, he knew that Mary was wondering if he was dead or alive, and he also knew that his mom was upset. Did he go straight home and say, "Mama, I just came by to tell you, to let you know I'm still alive and I'm okay"? Did he do that? Nope. He went straight to the temple. So is it about flesh and blood, or is it about principalities? He said, "I'm all about my Father's business." So he's saying it ain't nothing inside of me left for you. I am all about my Father's business. I get it. I'm all about the facts. Now, when people hear me quote that, they go, "Yeah, it's all about the gospel, blah, blah, blah." It's all about the facts. That's what he's saying. It's all about the facts. It's all about the truth. Don't try to stamp a label on it. It's not about Christianity. It's not about religion. It's all about doing what you have to do. Period. That's what it's about. It ain't about mama crying or mama worried about, "Oh, mama is just wondering where I was." I know, man, don't nobody. Hey, you want to know something? When it comes to the facts, don't none of that matter. That doesn't mean anything. It's all about humanity and getting humanity in order. And see, that's why a lot of people don't understand how cruel his truth actually could be perceived by people who don't get it. Because see, I can understand if people would think that he was cold. Because really the only time that you can say that he raised his voice is between Matthew verses chapter 27 through 26. 24 through 26, when he went off on the scribes and the Pharisees, when he was calling them hypocrites and stuff like that. Now, I could see if people can say, well, he was showing his masculinity because he was raising his voice, he was getting them told. But those other portions of his teachings, when he said, "You let the dead bury their dead," he wasn't raising his voice. So I could understand if people could perceive him as being cold. How could he just tell these people to suffer it be so, and you let the dead bury their dead? And how could he say that so calmly? Because he was at peace with the truth that he contained. He was at peace with it. That's why he was able to maintain his humility. It's just that, as you know, the pastors have put whipped cream and strawberries up on top of the teachings, and the teachings could be perceived as very cruel if you really understand them. But once you understand them and you understand the necessity for being in that state of mind, you will understand why you have to live as such in order to be at peace with your living experiences. And this is the reason why the Buddha had always stressed having no attachments. And if you look at Star Wars, this is the reason why the Jedi and them stressed having no attachments. And this is the reason why Yoda was telling Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Mace Windu and all of them. They were, Yoda was telling them that by him being 9 years old, it's very dangerous to try to train Anakin now, because he's already formed attachments to his mother. And what happened, what was the main thing that turned Anakin towards the dark side is when his mother died in his arms. I get it. I get it. And that's one of the reasons why my family, when they look at my videos and they hear me talk on the phone about my mother and my father, they be like, "Dang, Dave, that's cold." And then when you ask them, "Aren't you Christian? Don't you study your Bible?" They say, "Yeah." And doesn't God tell you you must hate one and love the other? Doesn't God want you to separate from evil? Doesn't it talk about separating the sheep from the goats? Come on, y'all. They're attached. This is my mother. That's my daddy. Attachments. You know what amazes me is how difficult it is to be a good person. You know, it's so much opposition. And then when I studied the Bible, studied Star Wars, you know, but when I studied the dark side, I said, you want to know, you know, what I noticed about the dark side? When you look at people like Darth Maul, who I totally relate to, by the way he fought. When you look at villains, period, you want to know why they so aggressive? It's because they are not limited by any laws, any commandments, anything. You know, that's why we love villains like Darth Vader. You know, we look at his walk, and he walks with authority. They step on through. They ain't trying to heed to any commandments, any laws. You know, they seek out what they're going to do and they do it. You know, and it trips me out, and it seems like this is why villains are so attractive. Everybody loves a good villain, you know, but it seems like when you try to be good, you see the good people, they are limited with commandments. I was telling a pastor that, I said, you know what amazes me is how people of the dark side are considered the bad people when they just do whatever the hell they want. I say, and they are a whole lot more honest than people who claim that they're good. I was telling this pastor, I said, the dark side, they're free. I said, so they don't have any commandments, any rules, anything on them. None whatsoever. But they do have principles that they go by. You can't deny that. And you know, this man was looking at me crazy. I said, but the people who claim that they're good, they have to have commandments and laws put upon them. I just like the people in prison. I command you to get your ass up at 4 o'clock and go get you something to eat. I command you to go piss. You are held down by these laws and these commandments. And these are the people who are supposed to be the good people. But they're equivalent to people in prison. I said, why do the good people have to live under commandments? If they're so good, they shouldn't have to live under commandments and any laws. I said, shouldn't the dark side people have commandments and laws imposed upon them? And you know, this man looked at me and he paused. You want to know why he paused? Because he knew that what I was telling him was true. I said, it's you people. And you want to know why y'all the evil ones? Because you break every law and you break every commandment. So I would rather not have any laws or commandments put on me. You know, therefore I don't get in trouble for breaking them. I said, so the dark side is actually free. I said, and remember, darkness was for light. I said that when everything was in darkness, there was no conflict. It was peace. I said, and then as soon as the Creator said, "Let there be light," that's when the chaos started. I said, y'all better think about this. Well, you know, the Lord tells us not to lean upon our own. Yeah. Whatever. You can't lean upon your own understanding. Then what the hell are you here for, Pastor? Here's a religion that speaks against your natural intelligence. So I can't it's a sin for me to utilize my own intelligence. I'm supposed to learn what's good and what's bad, but it's wrong for me to utilize my own intelligence. That don't even make no damn sense.
When Jesus or Yeshua, whoever you want to call him, whichever name you choose to utilize, you know, when he said, "My kingdom is not of this world," I think that if you understand exactly what he meant when he said that, and a lot of people do, you would understand that he was talking about being a non-conformist. And you know, there's other scriptures in the Bible that said, "Be not conformed to the things of the world." I feel like if you understand exactly what that means, then it's very easy for you to understand the man's mind. However, we have a whole lot of Christians today who think that they're disciples, who think that they're followers of his example, because when he said "follow me," he was talking about follow his example. That's what he was talking about. When he said, "I am the way, the truth, and the light, and none can get to the Father but through me." He was saying, I'm the example. I'm the way to live. That's all he meant. That's all he meant. Okay? But what I've come to notice through the years, when he said, "My kingdom is not of this world," and what he meant by that, he was a man who did not conform to the things of the world, like the politics, the religions, because he was against the religious world. He was against it. Okay, as a matter of fact, it was the religious world, the church, who actually had him killed, had him crucified. Okay, they were the ones who had him crucified and killed when they collaborated themselves with Rome, which is the government. And how many instances do you see that? I mean, we've seen that back in the 60s. Whenever there was a person who was looked upon as a Messiah or prophet, the powers that be would collaborate together and have them assassinated. I mean, it's a lot of instances out there. I mean, you know, it's the same as when Brother Malcolm was out there, and when he went to the UN, you know, he was speaking against the United States government, the same way Yeshua and the disciples spoke against Rome, which is the same government. It's you're dealing with the same government. So when he said, "My kingdom is not of this world," he was saying that his state of mind and where he's at in his mind and his heart is in opposition of what is going on in this world today in terms of the society. But you have a lot of people out here who claim that they follow his example, but they submit to a lot of things that this government system has imposed on us, like the identification of race and nationality and all of these different political sects, like Democrat, Republican, we call ourselves black, white, Indian, Americans. Those are things of the world, you know, and a lot of people claim that they follow him and follow his example, but all at the same time, he never claimed a race. He never claimed a nationality. He never claimed anything of the world. He wasn't a part of this world, and therefore he wasn't a part of the government system like a whole lot of Christians are today. But what a lot of people don't understand, that there's a huge distinction between being a disciple and being a Christian. Because actually in Matthew chapter 10, verse 42 in the King James Version, he says, do these things only in the name of a disciple. Now, a lot of Christians say, well, the disciples were first called Christians in the city of Antioch, but you don't read that scripture carefully. It said the disciples were first called Christians in the city of Antioch. It doesn't imply that they are Christians. It's just what they were called. It's right there. The disciples were called Christians in the city of Antioch. So when you take your time and you do your research, you find out, okay, you inquire, well then who was it who called the disciples Christians? Where did they get this title from? And then when you do your proper research, you will find out that it was the enemies of Yeshua and his disciples who put that name on them. And so the white man and other races call me a nigger or a mulatto or whatever you want to call me. Do I embrace that simply because that's what people call me? So why have you, as so-called followers of him, embraced a title that came from the mentality of his enemies? So what does Christian mean? They said Christian means Christ-like. Well, let's be clear. Christ-like is not a definition. Christ-like is a state of being. It's saying that I am like Christ. I am a reflection of the anointed Christ. And we all know you're not. I've never in my life met a Christian that reflected Yeshua, the Christ. So Christ-like is not a definition. So when someone asks you, what does a Christian mean? Just tell them it doesn't mean anything, because it doesn't. So what does a disciple mean? It means one who is being disciplined into the oneness of the Father, following the example of Yeshua, the Christ. So are they saying that they are Christ-like? No. They're saying that a disciple is being disciplined into the oneness of the Father. Being is talking about they're on a journey of learning, observing and learning. And therefore they're following his example, because that's exactly what he did. How many of you Christians observe all things the same way Yeshua told his disciples to observe all things? You don't. You stay right in the confines of your religious base. You stay right there. You won't leave that Bible. You won't touch that Quran. You don't study politics unless it has something to do with your political party. That's as far as you're going to go with learning politics. And that's probably most likely one of the reasons why when election day comes, you have a immense limited understanding of what this government is doing against you, because you don't study. You don't study the system and how it operates. But you want to know something? You're not supposed to be involved in this government system anyway. Because this government system, the same government system that you participate in and you make yourself a part of in terms of a political party, this is the same system that slaughtered Yeshua and nailed him to the cross. After his physical death, they started killing the disciples in Rome, because the disciples in Rome were teaching the people that everything that they were participating in, as far as Rome's culture, was against their the well-being of their souls. Just like you see going on right now, and how a lot of so-called followers of Yeshua are always participating in the voting system, the election. And the man said, my kingdom is not of this world. And he's telling you that the kingdom is within you. So why are you participating with this government system to give you something that you're really not supposed to have? It's not going to be any good for you. It's not going to be any good for you. You already have a government system. It is within. But they have everybody addicted to this government system. And so that's pretty much what he meant when he said, my kingdom is not of this world. That's all it means, and it's very practical. Everything you see that's going on in this society right now, the sports, all of the sports came from Rome, and each sport has its own form of violence, and it creates divisiveness, because you got this team going against that team. I mean, it's right there in front of your face, but if you study him and his example, and if you understand his thinking process, you will come to understand exactly why he was trying to encourage everybody not to involve themselves in whatever this government has to offer. But the government puts everyone in the position to where they feel as though they have to rely upon the government in order to function properly. So a lot of things that he taught, it could be difficult. It could be difficult, but a lot of the things that he taught also will give you the freedom that you need. And a whole lot of a few things, like the first portion of the video talked about, is how he wasn't emotionally attached to anybody, pretty much, primarily his mother. As time goes on in the Bible, he started calling his mother woman. He didn't even refer to her with her name after a while. Excuse me, I'm very tired. But when his father, Joseph, had passed, Yeshua is reported to have ventured out to the outskirts of the the Middle East. A lot of them, when I was over in India, they said that he went to Asia, he went to India, you know, and he went to a whole lot of places, and he was gone for 18 years. Now, when he returned, I believe he was 30 years old when he came back. Now, when he got back, he understood. He knew that when he left the venture to those places for the sake of learning and observing, he didn't tell his mother. And this was right after Joseph had passed. And so Yeshua was so focused on learning the facts, or as it says in the religion, I'm about my Father's business. I have to be all about my Father's business. He didn't say goodbye to her. So he didn't he wasn't moved emotionally in that way. So when he left and when he came back those years later, 18 years later, his mind wasn't on, I know my mother is worried about me, so I have to go home, tell my mother, and reassure my mother that I'm living and that I'm okay. I have to explain to her, you know, why I left, everything like that. But when he came back, he went straight to the temple. He was emotionally and psychologically detached from those common concerns that a son who was gone for 18 years would feel as though he has to first go home and explain to his mother why he left. Thus and so, but not him. So what was it that he knew that gave him the clarity to where those type of common concerns are futile when it comes to doing his Father's business, which is to help humanity from destroying itself? That's powerful. Powerful. He went straight to the temple and he started teaching. That's powerful. And so when he says, my kingdom is not of this world, it meant that he didn't claim any race, he didn't claim any nationality, he didn't claim any political party, he didn't claim any religion. None of those things. It even says that he was the seed of David according to the flesh, but he declared himself the Son of God according to the Spirit of holiness. He became a spiritual man. This is what he meant when he told Brother Nicodemus, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. He didn't say reborn. He said born again. I've heard a lot of pastors say, except a man be reborn again, you can no, that's not what he said. He said born again, not reborn. Reborn? No. This ain't a thing of recycling. We want nothing of the former self. Nothing of the former self. Born again, not reborn. We want nothing of the former self. Born again in the spirit, not in the flesh, but born again in the spirit. That's what that means. So if you guys are living his example. Stop calling yourself black. Stop calling yourself white. Stop calling yourself Hispanic and all of these things. Stop participating in the voting system. Get out of the government and get together and form your own government way of living here. Just go from there. You can do it without being a part of a religion. This is what the Beatitudes were all about. Just tell you, just be yourself. Be yourself. Like we were being ourselves before Rome hit the scene. And then they say, well, why is it that you talk about a man that's in the Bible? He was injected in the Bible. He was placed in the Bible. But he was a spiritual man. And how else are you going to know about him? You just have to understand that some information you're going to have to find out by way of reading. And that's just normal. You're going to have to find out some ways of reading. And if you would not have found out about his existence that way, the Creator would have found a way for you to understand him in a whole nother fashion by finding out some other way to come in contact with the man's teachings. But you have people worshiping him. He never told anyone to worship him. He just wanted people to understand the message, get the message. That's all they wanted. He was just down here to show you how to be a human being. And that part in the Garden of Gethsemane, a lot of people get upset, when I explain that part, because the religious world puts Yeshua up in the clouds to the point to where people intensify their worship of him, because it's like they put him all out in space somewhere, to the point to where he becomes inhuman. But the Garden of Gethsemane explained his human side. See, when he was sent to the desert to be tempted, those were primarily all of the things that I mentioned before, of the worldly things. And, he was out there being tempted by a lot of things that were addictive, attractive, and everything like that. But in the Garden of Gethsemane, he came face to face with fear. And so fear had affected him in such a way. See, because previously he told the scribes and the Pharisees that he was one with the Father. He was saying, I and my Father are one and the same. Now, a lot of religious people tell the lie when they say, well, he was basically telling the world that he was God in person. No, that's not what that means. It means that he is in 100 submission to the will of the Father. Now, when you get to the Garden of Gethsemane, you see another side, which goes in opposition of what he told them, because he says, Father, if it's possible, can you pass this cup from me? Just paraphrasing, don't get upset. And obviously the Creator said, no. You have to deal with this. This is a very vital lesson for you, because I'm teaching you about fear and how it affects the human being, and what it does to the human being, and how it affects you. And so after that, He says, suffer it be so. For it's not my will, but thine will be done. So what does that mean? Not my will, but thine will be done. Well, if it is not your will, what was your will, Yeshua? Obviously, it was in opposition of the will of the Creator. It's right there in black and white. It's right there. And so once he understood how important it was for him to learn about fear, because that was the only way that he was going to be able to move forward and do what he had to do in order to help save humanity from itself. He observed fear. He understood fear and fear's effects on the human being, which its intention is to make you afraid and take you off the path of righteousness. And once he understood fear and what it was, and not only what he was, not what he's afraid of, but fear itself. And once he understood that, and through clarity, fear doesn't have its intended effects on you anymore. I mean, it's the same in boxing. You know, you have two boxers staring each other down before they fight, trying to make each other afraid because they're both afraid. That's all it is. They're both afraid. And so I have fear, so I'm trying to stare you down to make you afraid so that I may not be afraid. I mean, that's fear is a very insecure entity. And once you understand fear and its intention, then fear isn't able to have its effect on you, because you know what it is and you know its intentions towards you in trying to affect you to the degree that you're no longer able to move ahead because you've been taken off the righteous path, which is a very human thing. That's why I appreciate that chapter so much, because through all of the chapters, to my understanding, it was my favorite chapter because it showed you that Yeshua was a human being. And so when he said to Peter, I believe when Peter said, I have to go back and bury my father, when he said, suffer it be so, will you let the dead bury the dead? Now, as the video said before, and as I said in the video, a lot of people will perceive a lot of his teachings as cruel. But when you are on a divine mission for the sake of bettering humanity, there's certain things in your life that you're going to have to detach from in order for you to do exactly what you have to do. And considering the mentality and the state of being that the people were in, he perceived Peter's family as the dead here and here. And so this is the reason why he said, let the dead bury their dead. How many of you can give your life to bettering humanity based upon what he revealed to us as human beings, not as Christians, but as human beings? How many of you can detach yourself from your family, from your friends, from your habits, whether it be anything? I mean, it could even be this, social media. Because there's a time coming where we're not going to have these privileges. sitting here talking on YouTube. We're not going to have these privileges. So you're going to have to learn how to detach yourself from a whole lot of things and a whole lot of people when the time comes. And this is not to make you afraid. It's just pretty much helping you see the importance of not having any attachments. You should be able to let things go, whether it's family or even material things, you know. Religion was created to confuse. It wasn't created to tell you the truth, because there's no truth in religion. Even though they throw some little truths in the Bible and in the Quran and in the Talmud and all of these areas of reading, but that's only to confuse you. It's the knowledge of good and evil. And there it is again. You know? So what you have to do, as he said, you have to be born again in the spirit. That's the only way that you will be able to receive and perceive the kingdom of God. So what is the kingdom of God? When he says the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's divine perception, but you have to be rid of all of this religious doctrine stuff that we've been programmed. You have to allow yourself to let go, and in letting go, you have to allow yourself to be afraid of letting go. You have to allow yourself to feel insecure without your current religion, and you have to understand that the Creator has already given you what you need in order to function in this society. It's called wisdom and intelligence. It's already sitting up inside of you. And stop going to these pastors, asking these pastors to pray for you. You already have what you need. When he says, go and sin no more, you already have what you need. Just stop it. Whatever you're doing that's causing your own self-destruction or deviation from what you know is correct, end it. As they say, cold turkey, end it. And if you can't end it immediately, allow it to die inside of you. People say, I'm working on it. No, you can't work on anything. You have to negate it. Every time it shows it shows its presence in you. No longer claim it as a part of who and what you are. Don't give it any attention. Don't give it any function or anything. Allow it to die. Allow it to die. Purge yourself. Don't feed those drives anymore. You know, people say, you know, because I used to always say, well, I'm like this and I'm like that. I'm like this and I'm like that. But if you read into those particular characteristics that you spend time claiming all the time, do those particular characteristics line up with what is divine to your particular understanding. There was a sister in the ministry, in Exalt Ministries. She went by the name of Sister Virginia. She used to, she was a pimptress. And I noticed with her, whenever she would resort back to talking about her past as being a pimptress, I used to always look at her, and she talked with such excitement. And it was almost like she would light up with bliss while she talked about it. And so one evening I was on the phone with her, and she brought that up. And I told her, I said, Sister Virginia, I'm happy that you brought that up. I said, so I wanted to tell you, stop being proud of that past. If you've left that past behind, and if you condemn it, allow it to die. Remove your pride from it. Because every time you talk about it in a way to where you're proud of that past, even though you claim to condemn it. Be born again in the spirit. Allow it to die. The same as I did in Georgia. It was a sister that asked me, what did you mean when you say you separated yourself from him, from your former self? I condemned him. You have to condemn the former self if you are ready to receive the newness of the mind. That other human being has to die, because that other human being was inhumane and he caused you problems, even if his intentions were good. His good intentions obviously wasn't good for you, other than the lesson that you had to learn. And that's it. And that's he or she. Whether you're a man that's going through it or a woman that's going through it, you have to die in order to live. That's what it's all about. If you truly want to live, you have to understand what death is and its quality. We've been taught that death of the organism is the death itself. But as Sir Jiddu Krishnamurti had said, he said, everything, the stress and the anxiety and all of those things, the emptying of that is the real death. That is the real death. And Yeshua spoke of that. Except a man or a woman be born again, not reborn, born again, only then can he or she perceive the kingdom, because the organism is limited intellectually. Because of the information is limited. And so you have to be born again in the spirit, that you may have clarity, so that you can clearly see the kingdom. And it has nothing to do with knowledge. It has everything to do with moving forwards and into the new day, and not looking back or even perceiving back, but just moving forward. Just moving forward. It's not as complicated as organized religion has made it through their pastors, you might as well say. See, the church was created so that mankind and womankind can depend solely on them, while they depend on the government. Because if you look in the churches today, you remember when Bush was in office? How can any of us forget, right? The Bush administration created a federal grant for each church It was called the faith-based, what was it? The faith-based grant. And they was willing to finance churches. This is one of the reasons why you see a lot of American flags in churches now. And if you happen to walk into a church and it has an American flag in there, there's a very good chance that pastor is getting paid every month. And the stipulation with that is they will finance your church as long as you don't speak anything against the government. And as long as you continue to encourage your congregation to take part in the voting process and, the government dealings. However, Yeshua said, my kingdom is not of this world. And who did he say that to? He said it to Pontius Pilate, who was a politician. You are not supposed to be involved in any political dealings in this world. When Obama was coming into office, it was a whole lot of so-called black people voting for him simply because of the color of his skin. And then when he got in office, Obama was dropping bombs everywhere. He spilled so much blood, just like all the rest of the presidents did. And so when I was out speaking in little short gatherings, I would ask them, how do you feel now? You voted this man in. You set him in that seat. So all of the blood that you see him spilling overseas, that blood is on your hands too. And a lot of people say, no, it's not on my hands. Yes, it is. Because Yeshua told you, do not participate. He said, my kingdom is not of this world. He said, render that which is Caesar's and you render God what is God. What does that mean? Pay your taxes. That's it. That's all you have to do is pay your taxes. As a follower of Yeshua's example, that is the only thing that you should do in terms of cooperation with this government. Pay your taxes. That's the law of the land. It's that simple. Now a lot of people say, you're not being realistic. Yeah, I'm being very realistic. It's just that we've been programmed and educated and therefore miseducated against what the message is all about. And if you look at the message is very humane. The only thing he's telling you is how to think like a human being. If the government is dropping bombs on people overseas, spilling the blood of people overseas and creating wars all over the planet, I'm not going to vote any of these politicians in because I don't support anything that this government is about. You vote a man in the seat, whether he's black, white, green, or yellow. You're responsible for everything that he does from that point on because you helped sit him in that seat. But you want to know why you're doing it? Because you're Christian and you're not a disciple. I want you to go to Matthew chapter 10, verse 42. And I would suggest the King James Version because he talks about that. He said, do these things only in the name of a disciple. He never had Christians. He said, if any man be my disciple. What does disciple mean? One who is being crystallized into oneness with God, following the example of Yeshua, the Christ. And that is very accurate. Good morning. This is a continuation of the video that I was asked to elaborate on more so. And the previous video, its title was "The Teachings of Yeshua Considered Cruel." Now, many people didn't read the title of that video correctly. I did not say that the teachings of Yeshua were cruel. I said, were the teachings of Yeshua considered cruel? The distinction between that, and this is only going towards those who misunderstood. If the teachings of Yeshua were cruel, then that outlook or insight would be our observation of him in particular, and that would be coming from, the cruelty would be coming from his words and his actions. But the title of it, were the teachings of Yeshua considered cruel? The consideration is those who observe him from the outside based upon common relationships in human relationships on pretty much every level. What I mainly stressed mostly and was trying to get across was by understanding the teachings, which are spiritual teachings, what those teachings have imbued in them is the ability not to allow emotions to dictate your decisions. And that's pretty much equivalent to when he told Peter to suffer it be so, for you let the dead bury their dead. Now, if you were in Peter's position in terms of his family, one of your family members passing away, and you wanted to go home to prepare them for their ceremonies and their burials and areas like that. And if he told you to suffer it be so, and you let the dead bury their dead, how would you feel towards him? How would you feel? Because before, Peter had told him, I have to go home and bury my father. Yeshua told him, suffer it be so, and you let the dead bury their dead. The suffering is the pulling away from the common attachments to the family and the common attachments to traditional ethics as far as preparing your parents' funeral and all of those things. Because, as I said before, by him being absent for 18 years without his mother knowing where he was, the first thing that he did when he came back at the age of 30, when he left at the age of 13, he went straight to the temple. So he wasn't emotionally attached to the common human responses of going home, letting his mother know where he's been and the fact that he was alive. It took some other people who recognized him as Mary's son to inform her where he was. So the teachings of Yeshua deals with a lot of self-observation, and the teachings of Yeshua lets you know that you can have any emotional attachments, you can have any type of materialistic attachments. This is why he told all of his disciples to leave everything behind, not only materialistic, but your thinking process, intellectually and emotionally. If you're able to do that, then you are able to become in time a disciple, which one who is struggling to be as he was, the way, the truth, and the life. Now, I'm going to bring up some things. When I was in Atlanta, I used to go to Dr. King's church, Ebenezer Baptist Church, and there were some speeches that I would sit up in the second row at the church, and I would listen to some of these speeches in comparison to what this system allowed us to hear, the common Dr. King speeches and everything. What I perceived from listening to a whole lot of the speeches that were not put in the public for us to listen to, what I learned about Dr. King is that he started pulling himself away from politics. And he had came to realize that him campaigning this wicked government to open up doors so that the Black community can be more so included into the system, he had in time started seeing and understanding things in a more spiritual way, in harmony of how Yeshua had taught all of his disciples not to be involved in the political areas of the system, as far as what Paul has said, in Rome do what the Romans do. No, a disciple doesn't do what the Romans do. A disciple is he or she who tries to remove those people who have been caught up in Roman culture and therefore American culture, and pull them away from that and come in a state of enlightenment of what the kingdom of heaven is supposed to be. And that is what's going on in the human being. Hopefully I explained that close enough for many of you to understand. But in time, he had said, I'm starting to think that I'm integrating our people into a burning house, which was Babylon. And we all know that America is in fact Babylon. This is why I was saying, if you understand that man's mind, when he said, my kingdom is not of this world, there's also a perception that you can get from that. When he says that, I will say it in another form. My kingdom is not of this system. This is the reason why he never said that he was Roman. He never said that he belonged to any political party. He never said that he was Jew. When he said, are you, when he asked him, are you the king of the Jews? He said, no, you say that I'm the king of the Jews. Therefore, he didn't claim any nationality. And so we come up in Babylon, where we're taught to call ourselves and consider ourselves Black, white, Hispanic. All of those things are political titles that have been imposed on us even before we ventured from the wombs of our mother. These are systematic titles that have already been established even before we are born. And this is why the word says, you are born in sin and shaped in the iniquities of the world. The iniquities of the world have us calling ourselves Black, white, Hispanic, Democrat, Republicans, Christian, Muslim, all of these different areas in which separates humanity from itself. And if you are separated from humanity, then you are in fact separated from yourself in general. So this is one of the reasons why he was telling you the truth will make you free. Making something implies a time element of detaching yourself from the common forces that are imposed on you within this world system. This is why he said, my kingdom is not of this world. And when you speak against any government system, that government system is going to put you on Calvary. You're going to find a whole lot of your preacher friends turn against you, as what happened to me in the 90s. You're going to find the government is going to influence people to break themselves from you as far as your common relationships and friendships, and it's even going to happen in some of your families. These things are going to happen in front of your families. Okay? And this is one of the reasons why his teachings could be considered cruel if you don't really understand how to perceive them correctly. And when you walk in the path that Yeshua revealed, that path is for the betterment of humanity. And when you are on the path of the betterment of humanity, you're going to lose friends, you're going to lose family members, you're going to be betrayed within your circle as he was betrayed by some of his disciples. You're going to find yourself having to understand what it means to be alone and secure in being alone. Okay? And so it's really not a cruel teaching, but if you're caught up in the way that this system imposes you to think, most people would consider his teachings cruel because he didn't have any attachments. He had even gotten to the point to where he didn't even consider Mary his mother anymore. There's some scriptures in the Bible to where he simply called her woman. He never called her mother, because that would imply having some type of attachment. When he came back, he died of all of those different areas within his being that would cause him to divert from 100% submission of doing God's, you might as well say, like you said, God's business, which is humanity itself. And if you listen to what he told the women on Calvary, when they were weeping for him, he said, don't weep for me, weep for yourselves and your children. Look at what's going on today in this society. It's going to get to the point, and Babylon, which is America, is getting ready to take us down that path to where a lot of pastors who are going to become enlightened, they are going to get those American flags out of their churches, and they're going to start rejecting those faith-based initiative grants. They're going to start rejecting the money. They're going to start taking those Babylonian flags out of their churches. And once they are able to speak the truth, because they are no longer a part of this government system, there's going to be people who are still a part of this common existence within this system, who are going to remain Democrats, Republicans, liberals, and all of those things that they have yet died to. And there's going to be some that are going to be in refusal to die to those things. Those are the people who are going to turn against these pastors who have become enlightened, and therefore they are no longer Christian. They have actually become disciples of Christ. And what that actually means, these pastors will come into a state of enlightenment that is based upon the spirit of truth, which in itself, they will become the anointed ones as Christ was. Those are the men who will be able to say, I am in fact Christ-like, because I am non-conforming. And there's going to be people in these congregations who are going to actually start to get it. They're going to actually start to get it. So this walk that Yeshua showed us in regards to making humanity better than what it is, it's not an easy walk. It's a difficult walk, but it's not impossible to accomplish. This is why he said, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and turn from their wicked ways, well, humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and heal the land. As I explained before, in that scripture is based upon the Beatitudes that Yeshua was trying to teach every human being that already have this within themselves. You actually can turn from your wicked ways yourself, but you have to pray to get the strength and the perception and the enlightenment to know how to tap into that within yourself, that you may actually be able to know of how to turn from those ways that are considered wicked in the sight of God. And only then will you no longer be a Christian. You will be a disciple. You will be a disciple. And only disciples can make humanity a better place to exist. Not Christians, not Muslims, only a disciple. Only a disciple. Now, if some of my Muslim friends get upset about me not involving Muhammad in this, do not forget that in a lot of scriptures that are in the Quran, Muhammad looked up to Jesus. He said that Jesus was a perfect manifestation of the word. Now you can go also in the Sunni and all of those other books. So there is no actual distinction between becoming a disciple and becoming a Muslim, which is one who submits 100% to the will of Allah and God. There's really no distinction. So this is why it is important for all of us stop the arguing back and forth. Sit at the table and understand how very important it is that we all become one in one mind and spirit. This is what I've been pushing. But the teachings that he brought forth from God could be considered cruel by those who don't understand how much it is important to have no materialistic attachments, no emotional or intellectual attachments, to where what is only important, not most important, but what is only important is making humanity a better place to live. And the only way that humanity will become a better place to live, we have to understand that that's only going to manifest by us knowing what it means to be a complete human being. So with all of that being said, I'm going to cut that short because I have some things to attend to today. But as I say again, I did not say his teachings were cruel. I said, were his teachings considered cruel? And I feel as though I have explained that effectively. So with all of that being said, everyone have a good day and stay human. Peace.